Treasury takeover? Outrage over President Trump granting Elon Musk full access to the federal government's bank account and the power to shut down foreign aid offices.
An unelected, unaccountable billionaire with expansive conflicts of interest is hijacking our nation's most sensitive financial data systems and its checkbook.
And while Trump defends his decision,
well, he's got access only to letting people go that he thinks are no good if we agree with him.
Will Americans agree that an unelected mogul should wield that much power? Record scratches? Why some conservatives are calling the Grammys tone deaf over Beyoncé's record-breaking wins.
Dolly Parton has 10 Grammys. Frank Sinatra had 11 Grammys. Beyonce has 35. How is that possibly commensurate with that talent?
And the awkward red carpet moment that left Babyface speechless. Then, Microsoft mega mogul Bill Gates is revealing the source code that started his journey to historic success and where the future is heading for big tech in America. Here come Hot Topics with Whoopi, Sarah Haynes, Joy Behar, Anna Navarro, Sunny Hostin, and Alyssa Farah Griffin. Now, let's get things started.
Of stuff is going on today. Joy is not here. She'll be back tomorrow, we think. And as we speak, the world's richest man, Elon Musk, has full access to the U.S. Treasury federal payment system, and Democrats are ringing the alarm bell. Take a look.
Before our very eyes, an unelected shadow government is conducting a hostile takeover of the federal government.
This is the most corrupt administration in our history, and it's putting our economy, our government, and our most at-risk communities in serious jeopardy.
Elon and his handful of friends now have full access to your personal and financial information that's in the system. Your payment history, your social security number, your bank account numbers. Elon now has the power to suck out all of that information for his own use.
Yeah. So, the White House, however, is claiming that they're keeping his power in check. Take a look.
Mr. President, why is it important for Elon Musk to have access to the payment systems at Treasury?
Well, he's got access only to letting people go that he thinks are no good if we agree with him. And it's only if we agree with him. He's a very talented guy from the standpoint of management and costs. Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval. And we'll give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't. He's running, obviously, a big company. It has nothing to do if there's a conflict that we won't let him get near it. But he does have a good natural instinct. He's got a team of very talented people. We're trying to shrink government, and he can probably shrink it as well as anybody else, if not better.
So, I mean, are Americans going to be okay with Musk? Oh, okay. A guy nobody voted for having all this kind of power. And, you know, the news outlet Wired found out that at least 6 of the gentlemen on Elon Musk's team are between the ages of 19 to 24 with little or no government experience, and one is in college. I mean, who are these people and why do they have access to any of your business?
Well, they don't. What they're doing is actually illegal. Everyone knows that the separation of powers allows for Congress to decide. They have the power of the purse. This is money that was already allocated from taxpayer money. Yeah. And to stop it is actually there was an act passed in 1974, right? I think it was the Impoundment Control Act, because they feared Nixon was blocking programs where Congress had already approved funds because he didn't like them. So it's beyond Elon Musk. Donald Trump doesn't have the power to do what he's doing right now, but I wonder where the screaming is, because Donald Trump floods the zone. We talked about how the last couple weeks has felt like a year. It's only been a couple weeks. And what he's doing is
by the way.
2 weeks. He's, while ending DEI, the immigration raids that they aired out all over television, started a trade war. But meanwhile, this is the thing people should keep their eye on, because this flies in the face of our Constitution. And that's where people should be enraged.
Yeah.
I think this is what he's doing. You know, I've given so much thought to it when we first started learning about Elon Musk now being a special government employee, which means he has top security clearance, but he doesn't have the obligations that a full federal employee has, so he doesn't have to give the same amount of disclosures. He has less conflicts of interest. And it seems to me that when I put my legal hat on, what Donald Trump is trying to do is he's trying to expand the powers of the executive branch. We all know, or we should know in this country, that there are 3 co-equal branches of government. You got
Who are they, Sonny?
Okay, so you've got the judicial branch, you've got the executive branch, and you've got the legislative branch. The legislative branch is the branch that Sarah was just talking about, which is Congress, right? So you've got the House and Senate, power of the purse. What he is trying to do is trying to figure out how he can expand his power, the power of the executive branch, and have a little more power over Congress. And he certainly has kind of a bit of power over the judicial branch, because the top of the judicial branch is the Supreme Court, which he has packed with loyalists. So in my view, I think he's causing a constitutional crisis intentionally, so that this goes to the Supreme Court. And if the Supreme Court, ladies and gentlemen, say, yeah, he can do this, our Constitution, as we've known it, is basically going to change forever. It will not be the Constitution that the framers of our government, our country, thought of.
Right.
Well, it kind of feels like if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, did it even fall? In that Congress also has to fight back and want to reclaim the power of the purse. And Congress really has 2 primary authorities: declaring war and the power of the purse in the House. They've completely ceded authorization of use of military force to the executive branch for decades. But now, even Republicans who support Trump's agenda, what even is the purpose of being in Congress if things that you vote for, that you work on, could be just completely thrown out the window by the president? And executive overreach isn't anything new. Previous presidents have done it. But this is unlike anything we've seen. And I'll say this: Republicans have always believed in shrinking the size of government. We've believed in cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, and streamlining agencies when we can, auditing agencies when we can. But what I'm struck by is it's unclear what's being audited, what's being written out, what we're taking funding from. One example, I would argue one of the most successful government programs in American history, PEPFAR, which basically has saved 25 million lives in Africa with AIDS and HIV medication. And it's also soft power for us to compete with China and have influence there. We don't know if it's operationally working right now because of how unclear these orders have been. Senator Cassidy has talked about it. So the White House owes America clarity. They need to say, are we doing away with USAID or are we moving it under the State Department? Are we doing away with the Department of Education? That's something that is in the press right now that might be next on the chopping block. There is a way to streamline and to cut funding, and then there's doing away with congressionally.
Well, they could vote on it. They have all the power right now.
And let's not forget, USAID advances national security, works to protect human rights and improve global health. The agency is funded by taxpayer dollars, authorized by Congress. No one said to us, hey, we looked at this in the last 2 weeks, and we've decided that this isn't a good idea. What do you think? And the last thing I'm going to say is that in 2023, USAID was less than 1% of the federal budget. So why they're going after that?
Well, can I say something about that? You know, we all talked about how Marco Rubio, heading, the State Department or being the Secretary of State, he was so supremely qualified. And that was one of the good cabinet choices that was made. Well, he has installed an assistant, sort of the second in command in the state. His name is Beatty, I believe is his last name.
He's an undersecretary.
He's the undersecretary. I hope we have a clip of of his text. He has said that white men need to be in charge of everything rather than anyone else. And there are about 4 to 5, and he's been saying this on X for about 5 years.
Yeah.
And so there are years and years of his bigotry on display. And Marco Rubio thinks that that person is appropriate to be his undersecretary and also to have a hand in U.S. aid. So I'm very concerned about that.
We're short on time, but very quickly on that. This is an individual who was fired from the first Trump administration for attending a white nationalist rally. The very position he's holding in an acting capacity was held by 2 very qualified and competent women in the previous Trump term. To me, it underscores how different this term will be than the first one, and I think people need to pay attention.
Well, what you really need to know is this is not new. This visual that you're seeing is not new. When I was a little girl, that's kind of what Washington looked like. Those are the folks that were in. At one point, we had the dragon, one of the head dragons.
Oh, yes, the KKK.
You know, we've had this is not new.
Yeah.
What is going to be new is if we stop paying attention.
Yeah.
That's going to be new, because the thing that got Americans moving was they didn't like that system. That system didn't work. So we worked and tried to get women where they needed to be, people of color where they needed to be, freedoms for gay. We fought for all of that because that was the country we were trying to get into. So see everything we're talking about, hear us, and then you make a decision where you stand on all of this. Because it's really up to each individual person whether they're going to participate or not. We'll be right back.
Oprah Daily is celebrating Black History Month by partnering with phenomenal small businesses to offer products you'll love at half off. So go get shopping now at viewyourdeal.com.
Welcome back. So, Queen Bee, Beyonce had a record-breaking night at the Grammys on Sunday. And some folks at Fox News apparently are not happy about it. Take a look.
Dolly Parton has 10 Grammys. Frank Sinatra had 11 Grammys. Beyonce has 35. How is that possibly commensurate with that talent? I mean, come on. And what people don't know about the Grammys is everybody votes in every genre. You can vote in up to 20 genres. So basically, Lady Gaga's Cat Sitter votes for best reggae and best country album. So that's why you get this ridiculous outcome that has nothing to do with the country audience or the country musicians.
Sir, are you aware that you have to be in the music industry to be a Grammy voter? So the Cat Sitter cannot just vote. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Are you aware that when the Grammys began in 1959, there were only 28 categories. Now there are 94. And the year that Frank Sinatra got 6 nominations, despite having 2 #1 albums, he only won 1 Grammy that night for his album cover. Not even for his singing, for the album cover. Listen, man, you can't do that. She earned it. The thing you have, you wanna hold on to country music like white people didn't also buy her country album? Come on, man. People voted for it. Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't. Same with the Oscars. Sit down.
Well, and also Ken Burns did an amazing documentary on kind of the history of country, and musician John McEwen said, quote, "It was music of the country. It was a combination of the Irish, the recently freed slaves, bringing the banjo into the world, the Spanish effects of the vaqueros down in Texas, the Germans bringing over the oompa of polka music, all converging. Country music was made by everyone for everyone, and it was of the people."
Yes.
So it's very ignorant, and it screams of that, aside from the fact he doesn't realize Lady Gaga's Cat Sitter doesn't vote, that this was never a thing.
Also, never mind, Beyonce was already the most decorated artist at the Grammys since 2023. She's already won so many. This was just awesome because it was a new category. People didn't think she'd win it, and she finally won Album of the Year. And I would just note, as someone who's loved her since 1999 when she was in Destiny's Child, she has been an icon for 25 years. She's put out 13 albums. This isn't somebody who it's she's just getting praise for this one album in this one moment. She's been a generation for us.
It seems to me, though, that the reason that Fox News or whoever that was is upset is because she won Best Country Album, and she won Album of the Year with country music. And, you know, I understand that there were other influences in terms of country music, but one of the greatest influences has been the African-American community. But the banjo, the instrument, comes from Africa. They brought that with them here when they were enslaved. And the other thing you have to note is that in the 20s, there were two types of sort of country music. One was called the hillbilly music, you know this, Whoopi. The other one was called race music. So that music was just supposed to be black country. The other one was supposed to be white country. What they then did was, because so many black country stars were involved in the white version of the hillbilly music, they erased them from history. They had white stand-ins sort of strumming the banjo when actually a black person had participated in that. And so country music is very much black music. It is very much American music. And so the fact that she is from Houston, Texas, and grew up on country music makes it all the more appropriate for her to be a country music singer.
Guess who else loved Cowboy Carter? Dolly
Parton.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, you know, she was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Music does not have the issues you have.
Yeah.
Music is about the people. We like what we like. We vote, we listen, we vote with our money. Then people come in and they vote. They don't always give you what you want, but they give you something. So please, don't try to make music about us and them. It's all us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Microsoft co-founder and philanthropist Bill Gates is the pioneering tech titan who helped lead the computer revolution and plans to donate the majority of his multi-billion-dollar fortune to global causes. Now he's sharing his journey and how it began in his new memoir, Source Code. Please welcome, for the very first time on The View, Bill Gates. So, first of all, welcome to The View.
Wow.
But secondly, it's kind of great to have you at such an important time for the country, because it seems like today's tech billionaires are shifting rightward and seem to have more power than even the VP, whose name I can't remember.
Well, there's no club of these people. We're, you know, kind of individual, and you know, I'm very focused on global health, and you know, hope the transition to this administration doesn't interrupt some incredible work that's been going on.
Well, they had some VIP seating at the inauguration, and we did notice you weren't there. What do you make of that visual?
You know, they clearly wanted to fund the inauguration. They wanted it to be a great inauguration, just for the good of the country, no doubt.
I feel we're calling you Bill, Mr. Gates. Shortly before President Trump took office, you had a 3-hour dinner with him, and that's more FaceTime than, as you say, you had with Joe Biden during his presidency. And by your account, you say that you were impressed with him. What are you able to share about issues you discussed? And since he's only been in office 2 weeks, but do you feel like what you discussed aligned with what you're seeing so far?
Well, my two priorities in talking to President Trump were the global health issues, particularly HIV and polio. The voters have a lot to be proud of. You know, we've saved tens of millions of lives. The number of children who die at the turn of the century is over 10 million a year, now down below 5 million. And things like HIV medicines, malaria bed nets are responsible for that, and vaccines. You know, so I was encouraging him to drive more innovation in those spaces. We're still missing some vaccines, and you know, I felt we had a very good conversation.
Well, and you, Mr. Gates, you also called Elon Musk's political influence abroad, quote, insane, along with another word we can't repeat here. But what's your take on his political access and influence here in America right now?
Well, Elon
his private sector work, has been very innovative, really fantastic. A lot of private sector people, when they get into government, they don't take the time necessarily to see what the good work is or why it's structured the way it is. So I'm a little worried, particularly with this USAID stuff. My foundation partners with USAID on nutrition and getting vaccines out. And, there's incredible people. They're not actually worms that work there. So, hopefully we'll get some of that work back in shape. In fact, if we don't, you could have literally millions of deaths. So, with aid, people think, wow, how much do we give to these countries? As you said, it's less than 1%. People think it's 5% and it should be 2%, but it's actually under 1%.
Wow, and still saving lives. Well, your Gates Foundation is the biggest funder of vaccines in the world. I think a lot of people don't recognize that. And it was key to developing the COVID vaccine. That has made you, unfortunately, a target of all kinds of baseless conspiracies, including from RFK Jr., who apparently does have a worm in his brain. And he now claims he is not anti-vax. Do you believe him?
Well, we'll do our best to work with him. Under his management is going to be the FDA, which is a fantastic regulator, passing judgment on a lot of the new innovations we're funding. NIH does fantastic research. And so those have been partners of our foundation. And, I hope the great scientists there get the support they deserve.
And just to follow up, before COVID, you say you spent the most sleepless nights worrying about pandemics. After COVID, has that changed? And if it has, what keeps you up now? Because we all need to know.
Yeah, the pandemic, sadly, was fairly predictable. And it won't be the last pandemic. The next one could be far more severe. I mean, this one, it killed millions. It was awful. We got the vaccine. Actually, President Trump's leadership was a factor in getting that out quickly. And so when I spoke to him, I said, okay, here's some other medical innovations, including a thing called an HIV cure that could be accelerated. So, we should be more prepared, both for a pandemic. I'd say that's still number one. You can worry about nuclear war. You can worry about AI. There's plenty to worry about. But overall, I'm an optimist. No, I mean, it's up to the government to think ahead on behalf of the citizens.
Yes.
So, pandemic, there's a lot that we should be doing that hopefully we'll get our act together before the next one comes. Overall, the innovation in health, both in the developing countries, the rich world, I love being part of that.
I was reading, though, that you said the next pandemic you are predicting within maybe 25 years. Is that
certainly
accurate?
we'll have one in the next 25 years. There's even some pathogens out there that we're watching over right now. So maybe 10% chance in the next 4 years.
Well, let's talk about AI, which you mentioned. Last week, Silicon Valley and stocks were rocked by news that China's AI model may outperform ours at a fraction of the cost and quicker to develop it. You've been in the book, you're very optimistic about AI. Are you still optimistic, and is the U.S. falling behind China in the AI race?
Well, the U.S. has done amazing work. Both people born here and people who come here mean that we have more AI companies than even China has. But we should never underestimate great innovation in China. In many of the areas of science or getting product costs down, they do great work. They're 20% of the world's population. So the fact that this turn of the crank, they got ahead, that's not totally surprising. The U.S. companies will, including OpenAI, will catch up and move ahead. The pace of advance is pretty fantastic. And in many ways, that's going to help us in education and health delivery. A lot of good things that can come out of this that aren't zero sum, that, having all countries have access, including poor countries, I think is very exciting.
I have to ask you this because of my obsession with social media and where it's going. We noticed you haven't tweeted in a while, but this past weekend you joined TikTok, Bill Gates. Why did you join the platform? Where do you come down on the impact of social media more broadly, especially with Meta banning fact-checking?
Do you do dance numbers on TikTok? Or?
Whatever it takes to sell books. I'm available.
So we're gonna go to break, but then when we come back, I want to know what you're doing on TikTok. We'll be right back with more. With Bill Gates. We are back with Microsoft co-founder, philanthropist, and author of The Source Code, Bill Gates. So, Bill, this new memoir, which is first in a trilogy that you're writing, covers your early years all the way up to the founding of Microsoft. Now, you've spent most of your life focused on the future and the next great innovation. What was it like to have to stand still and look behind you and sort of go through who you were and who you got to be?
Well, most of my life, as you say, has been pushing ahead as fast as I can. And even now, there's incredible innovations for health and education that I love working on. But, as I'm turning 70, which you're with me on that, maybe it's time to look back a little bit. And it was a fun process talking to my two sisters, thinking about how lucky I was to have the father I did, the mother I did, and how they dealt with my unusual characteristics, which weren't always easy for them, and really directed my energy in a way that, ended up working out better than I deserved.
Weren't always easy is a very generous way to capture a lot of your childhood, because when you weren't the straight A student a lot of people would expect, including myself, you were the class clown and quite rebellious. I'm going to run through a highlight reel real quickly here. Feel free to elaborate. So in 4th grade, you made a classmate faint in show and tell. Never seen that done before. By 13, you were sneaking out of the house until 2 a.m. In high school, you passed out drunkenly in the teacher's lounge.
Once.
Okay, sorry, just once. At 21, you talked your way into jail for a night. And at Harvard, a professor summed up your attitude in one word. What was that?
Well, was it when he said I was precocious?
That might be it.
That's very charitable.
That's charitable.
Also charitable.
And probably correct.
Anything to add to the color of these stories, or do they stand alone?
Well, I was a goof off until about 9th grade. And then I decided, okay, they actually think I'm dumb. I don't want them to think that. So I did get serious about school in high school. And then I was lucky enough to spend a few years at Harvard. It was weird because some teachers said I should be pushed ahead a grade or two. Some said I should be pushed behind, literally in the same year. And so that confused my parents a little bit.
Well, you open up about your neurodiversity, saying you probably would have been, if you'd been diagnosed at the time, you probably would have been on the autism spectrum. And if you were growing up today, at what point did you realize this, and how and when did you learn to channel it into a strength?
Well, I knew my ability to concentrate was different than the other kids. I'd be in my room reading books and, just digging into topics. I wrote a report on Delaware, and I did 170 pages, and the other kids did 5 pages.
On Delaware.
And so I was like, I must have misunderstood that one. And I didn't think about this diagnosis until I was an adult, and somebody asked me, and I was like, wow, that's interesting. I was late to develop socially. I rock a little bit, and I challenged my parents quite a bit. So
I had that.
No, I definitely think I would have been diagnosed that way.
Interesting. Well, in middle school, you forged a connection with a classmate who would later go on to help you found Microsoft, 2 classmates, I believe. But one member of the group, your best friend Kent, died tragically in a mountain climbing accident when you were in high school. You write that you think he would have been the 3rd founder of Microsoft. How did that loss affect you at such a young age?
Well, I had such an idyllic childhood. There was, other than this close friend dying, nothing traumatic. And he and I talked on the phone every night, so he went off to this mountain climbing thing, which is kind of strange that he did because he was no more coordinated than I was. And I got a call from the headmaster that weekend, which was very unusual. And he told me that not only had Kent been injured, but that he had died. And so, you just don't have a concept of somebody your age disappearing. Yeah. The only thing that really got me back engaged was thinking of his parents and how much worse it was for them. They were so excited about his energy and possibilities, and that was taken away from them. And in fact, late in the book, I talk about running into Kent's father and talking about, what would have happened if he had been part of it. My other friend, Paul Allen, was the co-founder and played a very key role in thinking up the idea of Microsoft. And, he got to participate in seeing essentially our dreams come true.
Yeah. Well, you have some major milestones coming up, like your 70th birthday, which you mentioned,
Yay!
The 50th anniversary of Microsoft, the 25th anniversary of the Gates Foundation. When you reflect on all that you've achieved, what is your biggest regret and what's your proudest accomplishment?
For my life overall, I'd say my kids are, what's most amazing. I have 2 granddaughters who I was with this weekend, 2 and a month. That is one of them right there. In my work, I put the foundation work even a bit above the Microsoft work. The fact that there were so many things that weren't being worked on, including polio, malaria, that we've been able to come in and fund the great scientists and work with governments, including up till now the U.S. government. So that I'd put that of my professional achievements the highest. But for my 20 to 40, creating Microsoft, and the empowerment that personal computing brought, I was so lucky to be one of the leaders there.
It's really amazing when you when you think about it. People always think when you're a kid and you're different, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to handle it. But look what happens. Support your kids who are different, y'all. It can work out.
They could be Whoopi or Bill Gates, you guys.
This is true. Bill Gates, thank you for coming to this table. Please come anytime. You're more than welcome here.
That was fun. Thank you.
Oh, good. The new memoir, Source Code, My Beginnings, is available right now. Scan the QR code on your screen to purchase it. And members of our audience, I bet you knew I was going to say, you're taking home a copy of the book. Yes. We'll be right back. The Associated Press is rightfully apologizing for suddenly shutting down an interview with Babyface on the Grammy red carpet. Take a look.
It's interesting.
Chapel.
You guys want to do that? Go do that.
So sorry, baby. I'm so sorry.
Go do that.
The reporters apologized and blamed all of the commotion on the red carpet. It's the chaos of the moment. Look, y'all, if you don't know who is going to be at the Grammys, get your producers to give you the information.
Yeah.
That is the sign of bad work.
Yeah.
Well, and when you do a red carpet, they give
you've done the red carpet, right?
You do one, no one would need to tell me who Babyface is, but two, I'm a little older, but I think knowing everyone that's coming on, but beyond that, the most important part is when you are interviewing, you are listening.
Pay attention.
If you are listening to someone answer, I don't care who it is. You've missed Chaperone. You're not looking over here, you're listening here. It's the difference between people who interview that you're like, wow, I'm drawn in, versus this is such vapid questioning.
And you know what? I love young people. Go ahead.
No, I was saying he was a total class act about, by the way. And
and
by the way, if Chaperone walked by me, I would probably lose it. But it's a life skill that if you're talking to someone, a more important, more famous, whatever in the moment person walks in, you don't change your energy.
And if you're listening, you wouldn't see Chaperone.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing.
Listen
I mean,
actively.
for those that don't know it, I mean, Babyface is a 13. He's won 13 Grammy Awards. I mean, he's an innovator, and so
he's written 26 number-one R&B hits.
And he's worth your attention if you're a reporter. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Be respectful. I love young people, but sometimes y'all don't. You miss opportunities.
Yeah.
And we're trying to help. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Alyssa is on the podcast today. Alyssa is on the podcast today. Have a great day, everyone. Take a little time to enjoy the view.